Congratulate him. I wish him well. We have many political differences, but notwithstanding those, I'll do my very best to build a constructive working relationship with him. I think it is notable, and I think it's important to say this, that he is the first British Indian, indeed the first from a South Asian heritage, to become Prime Minister. That is important, regardless of politics and whether or not they vote Conservative. There will be many British Indians, Asians that are looking at his appointment as Prime Minister and thinking that that is significant and important, and it is. You know, I would say two things in terms of early decisions. Firstly, he should call an early general election. He's the second person in a row to be appointed as Prime Minister by Tories, not elected by the population. The idea that he can go 2 years before seeking or winning a democratic mandate, I think, is just unthinkable. And secondly, he absolutely should not unleash another wave of austerity. You know, our public services, the Scottish Government's budget, we're still dealing with the legacy of the first wave of Tory austerity, right now dealing with the problem of soaring inflation. Our public services cannot withstand another round of Tory austerity. So big political differences. For Scotland, of course, he has no mandate. He hasn't been elected, probably wouldn't be elected in Scotland even if we were given the chance. Just another Prime Minister with no democratic legitimacy here in Scotland.
But does he have any choice but to look at cuts to public services? The alternative to that is presumably more borrowing or indeed higher taxes. And I'm guessing you don't really think either of those are the solution either.
Well, I don't think we should be trapped into this Tory and actually Labour mindset that there's no alternative to this, economic mayhem. It's been caused by Brexit, and I think there is a real need for Rishi Sunak, who of course was a Brexiteer, to face up to that. Brexit is doing the economy real damage, and of course that's been compounded in recent weeks by the decisions that Liz Truss took that have brought the UK economy to its knees. So let's get some common sense back and actually start dealing with the root causes of this, because having this choice between Tory austerity and more borrowing or tax rises is one that's been imposed upon us by the economic decision making of the Tories. But what is beyond any doubt is that public services, I don't think, can cope with another round of austerity. They are still dealing with the legacy of the last round of Tory-imposed austerity, and it will be existential for public services to some extent, and also people, businesses, families across the country already dealing with a cost of living crisis cannot withstand this. So it's time for a fundamental rethink, and I think one of the big tests of Rishi Sunak in his first hours and certainly days in office is whether he is capable of doing that fundamental rethink and admitting some very basic home truths for the Conservatives. Top of that list, Brexit has been an economic disaster.
And where would an independent Scotland get the money to avoid public service cuts?
Look, we will inherit as an independent country the fiscal position of the UK, as Scotland is part of the UK. As I set out last week, we will take a different approach to dealing with that. I set out last week plans, for example, for a Building a New Scotland fund, which is focused on infrastructure investment. Scotland's a wealthy country. We have amazing resources, not least our renewable energy resources. So dealing with the fiscal situation we inherit in a humane way, in a civilised way, in a way that protects public services and gets the economy growing based on our sustainable resources is the way to do it, not another round of austerity. And again, let's not get caught, and perhaps this is a message to media as well as to politicians here, let's not get caught trapped in this Tory mindset of there is no alternative. We see Labour getting caught in that right now, accepting that there is no way of reversing Brexit. There is a way of reversing Brexit for Scotland if we choose to take it. It doesn't have to be like this. We can do better than this.
And Rishi Sunak has said there needs to be more scrutiny of your government here in Scotland. What do you think of that?
I don't think, if I can say this very, very gently, I'm going to take any lessons from Rishi Sunak or any Tory right now about democratic scrutiny. I've been First Minister for just short of 8 years. I've lost count of the number of elections I've led my party to victory in. And of course, rightly, I'm subjected to scrutiny each and every day through the Scottish Parliament. So I think it's probably a time for the Conservatives to look themselves in the mirror when it comes to democratic accountability and scrutiny. And I'll continue to be accountable to and scrutinised by Scotland's democratically elected Parliament and, above all, by the people of Scotland.
And just finally, Rishi Sunak has also made it clear that, like his predecessors, he does not think, nor would he agree to, there being another referendum on independence. What is your reaction to that?
Well, it's not for Rishi Sunak to decide whether Scotland becomes independent or not. Of course, we await the outcome of the Supreme Court reference and that will tell us whether or not the Scottish Parliament has the competence to legislate for a referendum. I hope the outcome of that is that the Scottish Parliament does, in which case there'll be a referendum next year. If that is not the outcome, then we'll take the issue to the people in an election. Scottish democracy cannot be and will not be the prisoner of Rishi Sunak or, frankly, any Westminster Prime Minister.